What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the game week preview. We're going to try and tackle some of the big questions going into game week 22. There's a lot around kind of double game week midfielders, other midfielders to choose, what to do with Son, what to do with Salah, and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's all going to be covered in this video. If you do enjoy it, give it a like and hit that subscribe button if you are new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, so we'll start off with probably the biggest question I was asked, which is Son problems, right? What to do with Son and what to do with Son if you also have Salah as well. This also ties into which midfielders might be good to bring in, because some of you might not have these two players, but you might have a different player you want to take out. So we're going to cover it all in this section, right? So a few of the questions. If you've got a Son-sized problem, is it justifiable to hold Salah throughout African Cup of Nations? Can you get away with benching Son for the next 2 game weeks? And recommendations for teams that have both Salah and Son. So we know that right now Salah is fit. He's just not playing in the Premier League, right? He's playing African Cup of Nations. As long as he stays fit, once Egypt are out, you'd imagine as long as he's fit and available, he'll be straight back to Liverpool and straight back playing, right? Liverpool aren't going to want him to have too much of a rest, etc. With Son, really all we know right now is that he's out. He's got a muscle injury and he's expected back on the 9th of February. So he could miss game week 22 and 23. Game week 24 is basically the same week that we hope that Salah will be back. It's not definite, but we hope that he'll be back that week. If not, he'll be back for game week 25. The problem, if you've got both and you can fit in, and bearing in mind, I think, unless you're going to go for Bruno Fernandes, who we'll talk about in a minute, or Kevin De Bruyne or someone like that, most of the midfielders you're bringing in are cheaper than these two anyway. So I think if you can make the transfers you need to and get out the team you need to this week, and you've got both Salah and Son, I would probably sell Son first, I think. Because even if he's back for game week 23, it's Chelsea away anyway, so it's not even that great of a fixture. And if you've got Salah in your team, that's one less transfer to make. And let's not forget that Liverpool's fixtures in 24 and 25 and 26, Leicester, Burnley, Norwich, right? If Salah's available for them, people are going to captain him. So I think, going back to this first question, if you've got Son as a problem, i.e. you need to transfer him out, or you need to make a transfer for one of these two players, I think I would probably sell Son before I sell Salah. I think Salah is going to be more needed. Like, he is the number one player that we're all going to need as soon as he's back. So you need a plan for how to get back to him. So is it justifiable to hold Salah? For now it is. I mean, things might change next week. We'll find out how far Egypt get through and stuff like that. But I would say, yes, it's justifiable to hold. And the similar thing goes with is, can you bench Son for 2 game weeks? If your team is good enough, if you don't get any extra value by selling Son to get a different player in, if you think your team can handle not selling Son, then yeah, do it, right? There's no problem with that, right? I think most of the players we're looking to bring in, unless you haven't got a Ronaldo or Kane already, are already pretty cheap. So yeah, for people that have got Salah and Son, I think Son should be probably sold first before Salah, and just hope that Salah's back for game week 24. But either way, you could bench these players if you want to. If you're looking to sell, let's look at the options, right? So these are double game week midfielders. So they're players that have got 2 fixtures. I've got to be honest, this list is not good whatsoever, I don't think. I put it together because there's not a huge amount of other options. Obviously, there are options at the teams of the players I've written down. So Fernandes, for example, it could be Rashford, it could be Greenwood. But if you want to try and guess who's going to start every single game, I think it's difficult to do. Now, there was like a switch back to a midfield 3, which would mean 1 striker, so either Cavani or Ronaldo, and then 2 wide spots as well. So potentially this is better news for Rashford, and maybe you could take a punt on him. But if I'm not talking about free hits right now. I'm talking about bringing in players that you're then going to want to keep for the long term, or at least the medium term, or at least 1 or 2 more extra game weeks. And I'm not sure there's too many players on this list. McNeil, definitely not. Trossard, I don't think is a great option, to be honest. Like, I mean, underlying stats are not that great. The fixtures afterwards are pretty good. That's the only thing. Like, if we go to Brighton and bring Trossard up, after the double game week, it's Leicester away, but then they have a blank anyway. And then the really good fixtures are after that blank. So I think maybe a defender where you can rotate around a little bit more might work, but I'm not sure about bringing Trossard in. Lucas Moura, he's only really in our thoughts because Son is out. So as soon as Son is back, Moura goes back to being a minutes risk. So it's a very, very short-term move. He's only 6.5 million, so he's not that expensive. But I think he'll be a problem sooner. I feel like you're just delaying a problem for a little bit longer. And the long and short of it is, I don't think there's too many good midfielders to bring in right now. Maddison would probably be the one. Like, if we go back and look at the fixtures for Leicester, And this is obviously granted that their game goes ahead. Someone asked me the other day, why do you keep saying if the game goes ahead, it's on? I get that, but obviously they've just had a game postponed, so who knows what's going to happen in the future. But double game week, then Brighton. But the problem is that he then runs into really bad fixtures as well. So I'm almost sitting here thinking there's just no one good to bring in. But that is kind of the situation we're in for double game week players. The only thing is, as long as there's not a huge amount of postponements, obviously you will be able to bench some players. A lot of people have still got like 4 good defenders, 3 playing forwards, and then maybe 4 midfielders. Like one of those players needs to be benched every week. So if you bring in Maddison for the double, you play him against Brighton, then you decide you want to ship him out or to bench him, you could do that for the tougher games. Bruno Fernandes, I think, will now get a better look in at Man United. Like, I know, look, let's not pretend that he hasn't started the majority of games, because he has, but there was a couple recently where he's not necessarily been on the team sheet, right? And it could have just been rotation over Christmas and stuff like that. But I think switching back to having 3 midfielders means he pretty much plays most games in that number 10 position, or at least the most advanced. So he could be an option, but 11.6 million for a player whose stats have decreased from last year, 0.46 expected goal involvement. It's not higher than Mount. It's not that much higher than Lucas Moura. You know, it's lower than Maddison right now. These numbers could change, of course, but I think that much money. He's not got penalties either, unless obviously Ronaldo is out. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the press conference. But I got to be honest, I don't really like too many of these players. Again, Mount comes into double game week, then Spurs, then 2 blanks. So again, he's not a good long-term option. So if we're talking players to bring in, not talking players on a free hit, I think Maddison is the one from this list. And then I've got other midfielders. So this is players without a double game week this week, but maybe good long-term options. So there's 3 Man City players on here: Foden, De Bruyne, Sterling. Again, I think 12 million for De Bruyne, no penalties. It just feels like a lot of money to be putting in. But he would be a good placeholder if you're someone that's already sold Salah, or maybe you don't have Son, or whatever the case may be. He is a good placeholder, but I think I would probably punt on Bruno Fernandes with the double this week over going for De Bruyne, especially if this is just a short-term move to then get someone else back in, whoever that might be, probably Salah. I think if you want to save a bit of money, then Bowen's got a really good fixture this week. Foden, as long as he's fit and available and Pep says he's back, is probably the one that I would want. But it's not that great to bring him in this week. And this is the problem with Game Week 22. You're either bringing in a double Game Week player, a midfielder that you don't really want long-term, or you're bringing in a player that you do want long-term that doesn't have a good fixture this week, i.e. Foden. Now, you could look at Bowen and think, well, he's got a good fixture this week against Leeds, but the problem is the week after, then plays Man United away. And you could say it's not that bad of a fixture, but I wouldn't expect loads of points from West Ham players in that fixture. And then you've got Rafinha left. So I think if I was going for if I didn't own any of these players and I was going for someone that I didn't, the non-double game week player, I'd probably go for Jota, and then Foden would probably be next on my list, and then maybe Bowen. Rafinha is also an option as well. I just think Sterling's too expensive. So I know I've gone through them quite quick, but there's a lot of midfielders to think about. Double game week wise, I think a punt on Fernandes or you go for Maddison. I would probably discount the rest. I'm talking transfers in, not free hit players. And then on this list, I think if you haven't got Jota, he's nailed while Salah's out at AFCON and while Mane's there as well. And to be honest, there's nothing to say that he's not first choice, right? Even when Firmino was back, Jota kept starting. So I think he's probably the one to go for. Good fixture this week, pretty good short-term fixtures, and fairly nailed now if you're not going for a double game week midfielder. Okay, so anytime you have a blank or a double game week, this question comes up. How many double game week players is a good amount to have for game week 22 if you're not using the free hit? This person's got 5 with 1 hit taken. Hopefully the hit's not already been taken. You're just planning ahead. 5 to me seems pretty good. That's probably what I'm going to have. Maybe. I haven't quite decided yet. I'm going to do my team selection tomorrow. And look, if you've got any more, happy days. But I don't think you need to go out of your way to take loads of hits to get more, unless they are players you want to keep long term. And when I think about the teams that are going to double, right, if I just bring up the fixtures, so obviously all these teams at the bottom are the ones that are doubling. Okay, Man United players, you might want longer term because the fixtures are good, but who the hell do you go for? Defence isn't really that inspiring unless you're going to go for De Gea. Okay, Spurs, we've already lost Son. So Reguilon or Kane, maybe. Fair enough. Leicester, after that Brighton game in game week 23, they got pretty poor fixtures. Brentford's double is rubbish. Chelsea have got Spurs straight away afterwards and then 2 blanks. That's not ideal. Brighton have got a blank coming up, and from an attacking perspective, I just don't think there's too many players. Watford have got a good double, and then they've got Norwich, so they might be worth looking at. So the thing to remember when you're making a transfer is, right? Think of a transfer costing 4 points. Even if you're not taking a hit, using a transfer this week is stopping you using it next week, right? So it might force you into hit next week or whatever. So think of a transfer being worth 4 points. If you have to bring a player in this week to get an extra fixture, but then you remove them straight away, that's 2 transfers used. It's probably not a great use of transfers unless you can put that player as part of your squad that you don't have to play every week. So there's never an answer. There is never a number. Like, I'm not just going to say 6 is the ideal number, 5 or 4, because it all depends who the player is as well, right? Having Ronaldo is probably, famous last words, right? He's definitely going to get outscored now. Is better than Trossard, right? So it all depends who you've got as well. So again, I'll do team selection tomorrow, but my team right now, I've got 4. De Gea and Alonso, who right now are okay. Ronaldo, who's flagged, hopefully he'll be okay. We'll have to wait and see. And then Son, who's almost certainly definitely going to miss out, right? Because that's what almost certainly definitely, that doesn't make sense. But Conte's ruled him out, right? So if I do Son to Maddison, that gives me 4. And then I would probably do Broja to a Watford forward and just bench someone else. That'll give me 5. I'm not going to go out of my way to get any more. I don't want to bring in loads of players that I don't want long term. My West Ham players I want long term. Foden and Cancelo, good long term. Trent and Jota, good long term. You get the idea, right? So there's no definite number. The player that you bring in has to be good for this week and preferably not have to be removed straight away. Then figure out your number from that. Alright, so this is talking about more postponements. So should we avoid teams that could potentially have postponements like Leeds and Leicester? So again, I kind of mentioned that earlier, that the reason I'm kind of slightly worried about Leicester is because they've just called a game off, right, against Everton. So will they have enough players for the games at the weekend? Obviously, we're going to have to keep an eye out for news, right? On Twitter, there'll be kind of media people talking about it, like journalists that cover the clubs and stuff like that. And there will be press conferences as well before the games go ahead. So if the games are on, we probably have to take it that the games are going to get played, especially if there's a press conference, managers are talking about the next game. They'll probably get questioned about whether they've got enough players. If they put any kind of doubt in our minds, like if Brendan Rodgers says it's going to be touch and go, we don't know if we're going to have enough players back, and we still don't have any more info before the deadline, that might put me off buying Maddison, to be completely honest. But right now, if the game's on, I think we just have to play what's ahead of us. And if Rodgers comes out and says they're preparing for the game, they've got X player back and this player back and stuff like that, then you just have to assume it's on. I guess right now there is still a case to be made not to like go too gung-ho and triple up on loads of teams. Like for my team, I've got triple West Ham, I've got double Liverpool, double Man City. Maybe I need to just be a bit more careful about how many teams I triple up on. But Leeds and Leicester, there's really very few options anyway, right? Like Rafinha at Leeds is probably the only attacker you go for. Maddison or maybe Tielemans are the only midfielders you go for at Leicester. If Daka is back and available, he could be a shrewd option on a free hit. Maybe even as an option for our teams, like going forward, at least for a very short time while Vardy's out. But other than that, there's not too many players we'll be looking at anyway. So if the games are on, if the press conferences go ahead and they don't mention the chance of any postponements, there's no kind of rumours and stuff going around on Twitter, I think we just have to go for it. But we probably don't want to go too mad and just start tripling up on these teams. There was quite a few questions around flagged players, right, and whether or not the wild card should be used. So the question went something like this. I've kind of written it myself, but I have lots of flagged players, and they either had no free hits available, so somehow they've used both already, or they've just used their first free hits. They've only got one left, and maybe they want to keep that. Should we use the wild card? What about if I have both free hits available? So there are a lot of flagged players. Again, if I bring up my team, I've got Trent flagged, Foden flagged, Son flagged, Ronaldo flagged. Pretty big players. My whole left side. Then Foster, Broja and Livramento, right? So Foster doesn't matter massively because I've got De Gea and hopefully he's okay. So I've got 6 flagged players. Some people who wrote in had like 5. Some people had 8, right? It's kind of chaos right now. Now, first of all, a lot of those players are flagged because we haven't heard from the managers yet. And obviously we've had a bit of a break for a lot of teams between games. So if Pep says in his press conference, Foden's fine, he'll be unflagged. If Klopp says that Trent's back, he'll be unflagged. So I wouldn't worry just yet. If you've got both free hits available, I already spoke about this on my chip strategy video, you could use your free hit this week, especially if it's players that you want back next week. So again, if I come back to my team as an example, if Klopp says, okay, Trent's out, he'll be back next week, Foden's out, he'll be back next week, that might be a good reason to use the free hit and just keep my second one for around game week 30 when there's a big blank game week, right? If you've used your first free hit, I don't think I would want to use the second one this week unless I absolutely had to. I also don't think I'd want a wild card, right? I mean, I've just gone through a lot of this video saying okay, we've got to replace this player. I don't really like this guy. I don't really like this one. This one's bad because of this. This one's got bad fixtures. The double game week's not even that good. There are so many players right now that I just do not want, or they've got bad fixtures this week, right? So Foden and Cancelo, okay, they could get something against Chelsea at home, but it's not the most ideal fixture. You bring in Chelsea players on a wild card, well, you've got to get rid of them soon because they blank. Which Man United players are you going for? How are you going to set up to get Salah back? For me, the wild card right now, I must admit, I've not tried to build one, so maybe that is part of the problem. But when I think about who the hell I would buy, it seems pretty tricky right now to decide on the wildcard team. And also, a lot of people wildcarded last week straight into issues this week with postponements and stuff like that. So while there is still a chance of games getting called off, and this whole... Obviously, COVID's not going to go away for the rest of this season, right? Okay, I'm not that naive. But last season, we had a similar thing. It wasn't quite as bad. That over Christmas, the January period, there was postponements. And then as the season went on, that happened way less, right? So we can wildcard with much more information and much less risk of postponement. So I would just hope that a lot of your flagged players get unflagged, or that you can bench them and just use transfers on the rest and just get through this week and then see what chaos we have for next week. Again, I'm not trying to put people off using the wild card. I just think there's so many unknowns right now to use it that it's fairly difficult. And even if you wanted to load up, again, even if we bring back the fixtures, even if you wanted to load up on double game week players, again, Chelsea players are an issue soon. Brighton don't have... sorry, I've got a blank soon. And again, attackers and stuff we're probably not going to go for. Burnley, I mean, come on. Brentford, you're probably not going to want to load up on. Same with Leicester. Maybe a few Spurs, Man United players and Watford players. But can you not get to them anyway with transfers? So, yeah, wildcard... I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's out of the question, but I think it's very difficult to work out a decent wildcard team this week that isn't then just going to run into problems next week or the week after. So a few questions about Kane or Ronaldo. So this might be for people that have got either a lot of cash in the bank, maybe they already sold Salah, or for some people, right, we spoke about Son replacements in midfield. What we didn't really discuss was the fact that you could go really cheap and then upgrade one of your forwards, depending on how your squad is structured, to either Ronaldo or to Kane. So I can't actually get to Kane for my own team, which is a bit annoying, but that is one of the options, right, to go for one of these two players. Now, obviously, as you've seen from my team so far this video, at the time of recording, Ronaldo is still flagged, so we don't know if he's going to be back for the weekend. If he's not, then a lot of us are in trouble, myself in particular. I probably will just have to go to Kane, but we'll take this from the perspective that both Kane and Ronaldo are fit and available for this weekend. So who's the best option to bring in for the long term? I do think that Kane might be slightly better for the double game week. Maybe. I don't know how to kind of work out Man United right now. They still seem to be really struggling to break teams down. The performance against Villa, like Villa could definitely have scored in that. Ronaldo didn't play, so it's hard to... This is in the FA Cup, by the way. Ronaldo didn't play, so it's hard to know how he would have done against them. But I don't see that Villa away fixture as a necessarily great fixture. And with Brentford, they've actually defended for the most part quite well this season at times. But then against some of the bigger teams, they haven't done great. But then... Man United just aren't as good as like Liverpool or Man City anyway. But then Brentford have just conceded like 4 goals to Southampton. So it's kind of hard not to know what to know about their defences. Plus they're both away games. Whereas at least Kane gets to play one of the games at home, which is Arsenal. Not easy, but it is at home, right? Everyone will tell me. We know Kane likes scoring against Arsenal. And then Leicester away doesn't seem that bad given how they've defended so far. So in some ways I'd probably lean slightly towards Kane for the double game week, but for the long term I do think that Ronaldo's better. So if we bring up the fixtures, so as we know from talking about Son earlier, they run straight into Chelsea away. Southampton at home is pretty good, but then Wolves at home, Man City away, and not great fixtures. So up until game week 26, it's not massively great for Kane. Whereas with Ronaldo, okay, straight after the double, West Ham at home is not easy, but then it's Burnley away, Southampton at home, Leeds away, Watford at home. So if you got into position where something happens with Salah where he's not available as soon as we wanted to, and or you've got enough money or enough of a squad structure to have both players, like one forward and one premium midfielder, then Ronaldo's a pretty good long-term hold. Now, I know that Man United have been performing badly, right? You're not, like, for people that have watched for a while, if I'm biased about Man United, I'll say it, right? I know they haven't been great, but you don't really want to knee-jerk too much, right? So, Ronaldo plays against Arsenal, 2 goals. Palace, okay, nothing. Man United played pretty badly against Norwich, but he gets the penalty. The Newcastle game is where I already owned Ronaldo, and I got really frustrated with him and Man United in general, so I didn't even think about captaining the next week. And then he turns up with a goal and assist. And Wolves aren't that easy to break down anyway, so I don't want to like massively knee-jerk. Like Ronaldo has ticked over just fine so far this season, really. Again, maybe if it's a choice between him or Salah when Salah's back, then there's no way you're going to pick Ronaldo. But I think given that the fixtures afterwards are pretty good, he's probably the better long-term hold. But if I was on a free hit and I could only go for one of them, even though you'd probably have both, right? I'd probably go for Kane. So I don't know if that helps. It depends how long you want to hold on to him for. But I just think Kane running straight into Chelsea straight away afterwards probably puts it slightly in Ronaldo's favour as long as he's fit. So there we go. If you did enjoy that one, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Hopefully we've covered most of the major topics and questions going into Game Week 22. Obviously, things could change over the next couple of days. That is the way of FPL. But I'll have my own team selection video tomorrow once we see what happens in the West Ham game. Fingers crossed for a Craig Dawson goal in the opposition net, right? Not an own goal, by the way. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Team selection tomorrow. We'll have a video out Friday morning as well. And obviously, we'll have the deadline stream in the afternoon too. Thank you very much for watching. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.